Empire.
Hello and welcome to another live stream edition of the John Carr Report. Do me a favor, subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube later, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and you can always read my work on ESPN.com. And to go find the page, the Empire, go find the YouTube page. I'm getting it tough here, Bram. Go to the Empire Media YouTube page. You can find it all there. Also, for you gold members, I'll be doing the private Zoom. Got to do it Friday night this week, 7:30. Another Friday episode. Bring your questions, etc. Always a good time. So that's it from the intro. Bram, they had some news today with Jamin Davis being released.
Yep.
I guess I don't want to say I didn't see that coming because they have to activate Jordan McGee, but we'll get to that in a minute because we got to start with Jayden Daniels because that's obviously the story this week. But I do want to get into later on about all these first-round picks who did not work out, but it's also the reason why they are in the spot they're in now. Anyways, Jayden Daniels. So what do you think? This is a hard one to even start with because we don't know enough about the injury to know what might happen. I think that's why it's hard even to know where to start with him.
Yeah, I have nothing to add on to. I just know it's a rib injury. I don't know the severity. I don't even know the specificity of it. And I know a couple people tried, yesterday with Dan Quinn to ask specifically what is it, and we're learning. We learn the parlance of the coaches, and Dan Quinn doesn't want to tell you, right? And that's his right to not tell you exactly what it is. But so because of that, and because I don't have any other knowledge of what it is. I don't know. I don't know whether he's going to play or not. We're going to find out a lot more, the next 2 days. Is he out at practice? Is he taking the reps? Does he do the midweek press conference? The quarterback speaks on a Wednesday. If Mariota takes that, which is what I would do if I were the Commanders anyway, just to, at least for gamesmanship's sake, show the Bears it's very possible that he's going to be the starting quarterback because the starting quarterback does this on Wednesdays. I would do that if I were them. And then I don't know. I'm with you here. We like to play close to the vest. I don't want to guess. I don't know the severity of the injury, and they haven't told me. And even if I ask, they won't. And so I'll find out like you guys. But we'll know a lot more the next 2 days when they put pads on and go to practice, and whether he's taking reps or not.
Bram, if you really want to throw Jeff Driscoll for the press conference tomorrow. That will throw him off there. So or even Hartman, right? But yeah, no, that's the problem. And the thing is, so much of it comes down to how he throws, because the one issue that he had obviously Sunday when he thought he was going to go back in was when he threw the ball, he grimaced in pain, and that's a difficult thing. So if you can't throw, you can't play. If he's healthy, he has to go, right? I mean, I don't think you sit him just to sit him. If he's healthy, he goes.
No.
If it's close, what do you do?
No, you play the games.
Right.
If he can go, he can go. This is up to the medical staff and the coaches to determine whether he can do all the things they want to do. I think, I'm hedging big time here because we've already seen examples from this staff that they are really willing to be careful with players. Brian Robinson probably could have played against the Ravens.
Right.
It was in his best interest for him not to. And once I found out what the real severity, because they just said knee injury with him, and you'd think the worst when you hear that, especially with a running back. But it turns out it wasn't the type of thing that was the worst, but it was something that could have gotten exacerbated if they played him. So they chose to take the week off with him for his best interest, for the team's best interest. They've done this with Cleveland Farrell for a couple of games. They did it with a number of guys in the summer. So, that's what it is. I'm of the camp, if this is in December and a playoff game's on the line, we're probably having a very different conversation about it. But because it isn't, and I do think this is a really, really, really big deal, this game, then I think they're going to be careful because that's what they've consistently shown to us, that they're willing to be careful with players. But again, I just don't know the severity of it. I would have a much better guess if I knew exactly what it was that they were dealing with, because we've been around so long that, it's not that I'm, an orthopedist or anything, but I can give you a sense of whether they can play or not if I know what it is, but I don't know exactly what it is. Is it a bruise? it's clearly not a break. They would have put him on IR. So I don't believe it's that. I don't know that, but I don't believe it's that. So I think it's something else, a bruise, a cartilage injury, something, but I don't know what it is. And unless they're going to tell us, it's hard for me to speculate, honestly.
Right. And you hear some things, but it's nothing that you can report. Now, I will say, Bram, I am much better at smoking ribs than diagnosing them. So that's where I can go with it. But I do think, like you, if he's healthy, you got to play him. You're not going to rest him just to rest him. You're not going to, and especially for a guy like that who's an intense competitor, he will find a way to be out there if it's close for him. But you have to be able to play at a certain level to do that. And that means you have to be able to throw the ball the way you need. And you have to be able to take a hit, et cetera. So I think, I don't think that will be, I don't think that's an issue in that regard, but we'll know a lot more tomorrow. Like you said, if he's doing anything, and then we'll know a hell of a lot more on Friday after going through the week to see what he does. And I'll tell you what, like, it would be a shame if he can't play because the matchup, it's such a fun, good matchup between the quarterbacks.
Of course.
Who are both now playing well, that it would be a lot of fun for us to go watch that, but that's not a reason to play him or not.
No, and I want to get to this comment that's up on the screen right now, which is this game is not a big deal. B-Town Burns said this, and he goes, "It's one non-division game when you're sitting at 5-2. You need to do what's best for the team long term." I agree with the last part. You need to do what's best for the team long term. But let me paint a picture for you right now about why this is a really big deal. So 5-2, the playoffs are very, very, in play for them. Obviously, the division is very much in play for them. But, in reality, like, could they end up in second place in the division? Yes. Now we're talking about a wild card. You don't want to lose a head-to-head to a team that you're vying with. So this is a really big deal this weekend. I'm not suggesting they should play him, and risk him for long term. I agree with that part of it. But I do see this as a big deal. This is not the Panthers game. That team's 4-2. They're surging. I like their roster. You lose to them. I don't want to see, and we come down to the end of the season and they're vying for a playoff spot, and head-to-head matters. So this is a big deal to me, this game.
Well, it's not just it's the conference record matters for tiebreakers. So whether it comes down to them versus Chicago, it could come down to tiebreakers in the conference, whether that's for a home game or is this for a playoff spot. So yes, that would matter. And so, but
plus, look, Philadelphia is they just won big the other day. Like, maybe they're going to get back into the spot where we think they're going to be. Maybe they're not going to fall off a cliff and have their coach yell at everybody, and all of a sudden the door's wide open to win the NFC East.
Right.
Like, this is a big deal, this game. And B-Town says this, it's not a big deal because of the first pick versus second pick BS. That's not BS. Like, that's a big deal too. But I agree with that sentiment part of it too.
I agree with that. That's a fun thing.
I agree that, you don't play him for a storyline and because CBS wants it to happen. You play him if he's healthy to do it. But I do not dismiss this as a big matchup. It's an NFC game against a team that's a half game behind you. You lose this, you lose a conference game, which is the first tiebreaker. The second one is head-to-head. Like, I don't want this to come down to, well, he didn't play, and then it wasn't a big deal. Then all of a sudden we have the same record as them, and we don't get in because they did.
Right.
You know what I mean?
I think that you can file the 1 versus 2 as interesting, but not important.
I agree.
As somebody used to say. So yeah, that's more from a reporter standpoint, from a fun angle to the game standpoint. And I also think it's kind of funny. There are a lot of Bears fans, I think, had some angst about the starts for both these quarterbacks because,
of course,
and understandably, but Caleb Williams is playing pretty well. Here's the other thing, Bram. I know this came up a little bit on the Quinn conference call Monday about, there's what could Jayden Daniels do different at, as far as running the ball. To me, you don't change a damn thing. Like, this is who he is. And when he's running, it's instinctual. You cannot start putting things in his head about what to do, except for sliding to protect yourself when you see somebody coming head on, right? But short of that, you don't start to try to curb anything with him or change anything about him, because the reason why he's here is because of all those skills that he has.
This is the interesting part of the conversation here. Like, whether he plays or not, in the short term, not the long term. I agree with you, and I am sick of this bubble wrap the guy. How do you protect him? He's playing in the NFL. He needs to play instinctually. You drafted him because he's got these special levels of talent running the ball. You're not going to take that away from him. I also want to stop. Get out of his head and stop. Let him be the football player that he is. He did the things he did and got drafted where he got drafted and is having a historic, unprecedented season because he's playing the game the way he knows how to play the game. He's a special player. So it's ridiculous to talk that way. But in the very, very, very short term, if he, he's going to have a rib injury no matter what. They're going to try to protect it. They'll do whatever they need to do. If he were to play, you have to think about, do you limit the amount of hits that he potentially could take with called runs? And so that's a question for Quinn and Kingsbury, that in the short term, are you thinking about him a little bit differently now? But long term, I'm done with this. Like, you got to protect him at all costs. What are you talking about? Like, he's playing in the NFL. That's impossible. And I want him to play the way he plays. Look at what he's done to this point, playing the way he plays. But in the short term against that defense, I do wonder, are they going to think a little bit differently about how many scheduled runs they're going to call for him to try to limit maybe a couple of the hits along the way?
Well, and also, what kind of runs are you calling for him? Because when, some of the zone read keepers outside, you're not going to take the same level of contact that if you're calling some sort of inside run off a QB fake, right, off a fake. Like, you're not going to get the same level of hit, and you can protect yourself more with the tight end coming around with you, Austin Eckler coming around with you on the one run who had made a really good block. So you can do things to help him, but yeah, you do not change his style. And also the other thing is, I don't think that not knowing about him now is any part of gamesmanship, unless he's not going to play. Then it is. But if he's, you know what I mean? Like, so it's possible that they just know already that probably not. I don't get that sense. But I don't think it's something like that, but who knows? It wouldn't be the first time. I think early in the week, it would be really hard to say that he's, would be available or not. I do believe that it's very short term. So I do think there is a definite chance that he could play. So that's why I don't think it's just necessarily subterfuge. But, if it is, hey, fun too, right?
I don't mind the gamesmanship of it. I mean, why tell the Bears what he's going to do? There's no
reason to. And
that's why I don't need to ask the question or get the answer to it because I don't need to know either. Tell me on Friday.
Here's the other thing. The Bears are going to prepare for a style of offense as well. Like Mariota and Daniels, there's enough of a similarity in style, and the play calling didn't really change against the Panthers when Mariota came in. That's what you're going to prepare for. You're going to prepare for the style of offense, what they run, and then within that, you say, okay, Daniels likes to run this way when he gets chased out. Whatever. There's some specific things, but you will prepare for the offense as much as anything.
There is one other thing that I want to say about this with the matchup part of it, which I do think is interesting. And you've kind of referenced already, like that some of the Bears fans are having agita about, what they've seen. I think the reason why we're all basically able to just kind of go, yeah, if he doesn't play this week, it's okay. I think we are completely secure in the selection that was made of this quarterback for this team. And while I don't think any Bears fans are regretting us if they are Caleb Williams selection, you're crazy. But I could see where they're the ones that had the choice. They're the ones watching this guy put up historic numbers. And they're the ones that want some validation that the guy they chose was the right guy and not the wrong guy, even though it's my opinion at this point that both of these teams are going to end up being right. That this is one of the rare occurrences where it looks like number one and number two are both really good, but Jayden has got off to such a crazy start that I think the Bears fans want the validation of, our guy's really, really good too. And we're all, this is new territory for all of us. We're sitting back going, you know what, if he doesn't play, it's not a big deal because we know what we have in him. Just 7 games in, we already know what we have in him, and we all agree it's best served if he can't go. We're okay with that. Get him ready for, the second half of the season. And I think that's what's really interesting about this too. The security in the decision that was made. We didn't have the choice to go Caleb or Jayden. They did. and they chose and I don't regret, I don't blame them for the direction they went whatsoever, but certainly when the other guy is playing to the degree that he's playing, I could see where they're looking at this going, we want to prove something this week. And I would bet more than anything, they'd actually like Jayden to play because they want to see it on display against one another. It is going to be a big time indictment, for them if it's Mariota that beats them. I actually think that is going to not play very well in Chicago if it goes that way.
Well, for sure. But the funny thing is too, this team didn't have the choice between them. I still think they would have picked Jayden. And, everything I've heard.
Yes. I think, there would have been a lot of public pressure. He's really good. Caleb was really good in college. But Caleb's from here. There's so much that was in that decision. But, as it turns out, it's fortunate that wasn't the decision that needed to be made. And we talked about this during the draft leading up. I didn't know what they were going to do, but to me, it was obvious to take Daniels over everybody else after Caleb was gone.
Yeah, but everything I've heard and talked to people, I do believe that Jayden was their number one pick on the board. And, I heard, nothing has changed my mind. And, obviously after they make a pick, teams often say that, but other stuff that I've heard since and what I heard in January has proven out. So I do think that, but, we don't know. And I will say their choice was between him and Drake May and JJ McCarthy, and that wasn't a choice at all. So there's nothing that they have to feel, kind of be second guessed on unless there's some Drake May fans still lingering out there, but they made the right pick. And you're right. So, but it was, the other thing that's fun with this matchup, Bram, though, I don't care because I'm with you. I think both teams got it right. Caleb Williams has looked really good. This could be a really fun quarterback rivalry for a decade. And here's the amazing thing. Both these franchises have looked for decades for this guy, and possibly in the same draft going 1-2, they may have both solved the problem, but it'll be a fun thing. Like rookie of the year voting, maybe down the line, MVP voting, who does this first, who does that first, playoff games. This could be a lot of fun over the years. And it'd be fun to have a close up seat to watch this.
Yeah. I think it is for these two. I hope that that's the case, and it could be the rebuilding of a rivalry that really dates back in the 80s when both of the teams were really good at the same time. So, and it's really coincidental that it's off of Darryl Green's day. Darryl Green had maybe one of the 2 or 3 singular greatest moments, and it was in a playoff game against when the Bears were great back then too. So. I want to see this happen too. I saw someone else write I'm rooting for Caleb. So am I. I actually, being that he's from here, it's hard for me to have any kind of ill will towards him. Obviously, I want our guy and our team to be better, but I am hoping that Caleb has a really great career, and hopefully not this weekend, but I am looking forward to seeing what he does in his career. I think he's a very special player. He did it in high school here. He took it to various different colleges. He was amazing. I want to see it too, as just a fan and someone who's going to be privileged to call this. I would love to see them both on the field at this time, but if it doesn't happen, I know it's for a good reason. I know it's for the future of this team this year and beyond. And I have a feeling this may be the first, and it won't be the last, where we're going to have big games between these two sides.
That's what I mean. That's why I'm looking forward to this, because it's fun to, God bless, what a difference this year has been, Bram, to watch games, going to games where that this is a good team to watch. And, let's go back to if Jayden doesn't play, then you go to Mariota. And what did you see from we know the stats. We saw what he did. Panthers are not very good on defense. We know that. But what did you see from Mariota the other day?
So, I actually, I was pleasantly surprised to see how the offense operated. I want to be careful about this, about what we saw and making any judgments about it. Carolina's record is what it is for a reason. And I'm rarely this uber confident going into any game because it's the NFL and anything can happen. But their defense is decimated by injuries. And if you had watched them coming in, I knew that Washington was going to run the ball really effectively on them. They were down on their defensive line to undrafted free agents and 7th round picks across the board. Half of the defensive players available fall into that category. They're so beat up that even whether you want to believe their record or not, there was really they were helpless, especially against an offense that's operating like this. I was pleasant. It was nice to see Mariota operate well. I thought the 2-minute drive at the end of the half was the one that really stood out to me, because if you go through it, the most amazing part about it was I actually don't think Washington was in any rush to try to go down the field. But for some reason, when Carolina didn't use their timeouts to fall back and then had a couple of penalties just to give a little bit of field position, that's when they just hit the gas again. And that's when Mariota got his stride, and it carried over into the second half. Will this carry over against a much, much, much better defense? I don't know. So I don't want to go so far as to call this fool's gold or anything like that, but I'm not really sure that we know how this thing will operate for a full game until they play a really viable top 10-ish caliber defense. And that's what they're getting this weekend. So if he does play, it's hard for me to know, whether he's an apt replacement to keep it going the way that it's been going. That's the way I feel about it.
Right. And I think the one thing that the 2-minute drive really impressed me. I think just coming off the bench, I know he played against the Browns a little bit, but he hasn't had a lot of game action in a long time. Right. So what he did was impressive coming off the bench. I think what Kingsbury did with the offense, I like watching him operate as a play caller, and the design of the offense is really good. That's not going to change. The other thing, like the Bears are a top 10 defense. They've also kind of feasted on some bad offenses. And so, but that's how you build those rankings, and they've done what they should. It's a good defense. So that's going to be a challenge. The one thing that when watching Mariota, it definitely seemed like he was more comfortable operating off schedule than as a rhythm passer, yes. Right? Because there were definitely times it felt like, could you have stayed here and delivered this throw, but then he'd get outside the pocket and deliver to be honest, a harder throw. He completed them. It's a hard way to live against a good defense. So that's something to watch how that goes. But is that just well, you haven't played in a while, or is that just going to be how he is in this offense? And I think the run game will be a big key. I know there have been some issues with that for the Bears, and the secondary is a little bit banged up. How does that factor in? So I think there's a lot that they can still do without Jayden Daniels. And again, the Panthers defense was really bad. And like you said, it was banged up, but they still did what they should. And Mariota operated the way he should after that first couple drives. And so that was good for them to see. But the good thing is, Bram, they don't have to change the style of the offense to fit Mariota. He fits into this pretty well.
Yeah, he does. It's an open question. How's he going to play? We'll just have to see. I think the creativity of the offense is the big storyline that's happened here. It's a big part of it. I want to credit Cliff and the staff and all that for putting together what has been a dominant offense this year, one that uses tempo more than anybody else in the league and to their advantage. Their offensive line has been outstanding. The other real open question here is, and there's two parts to it, which is really the other side of the ball. Can this team hold up against a trio of receivers like that? That's going to be a big time ask, right? That's going to be a big time ask. But like, they get Williams, who I haven't studied. I've seen a little bit of it. I haven't studied yet. And I will say this, like, he likes the off schedule plays. He moves around. And in the games that they've played against quarterbacks like this to this point, they fared very, very well. They did so against Kyler Murray. They did so against Deshaun Watson. Say what you want about Watson and the season he was having before he got injured, right? So I feel pretty confident that Quinn and Witt will hopefully be able to get Williams to make some mistakes on some of this off-schedule stuff. But I will say this, that trio of receivers is a daunting task for what is the weakest position group on this team, the corner positions.
And that's why I put up DeForest asked, what do we do about DJ Moore? I'm still having nightmares about that guy. The problem isn't just DJ Moore. It's exactly what Bram just said. And it's also Cole Kmet is a very good tight end. So like they have
and Allen is a Pro Bowl caliber. I mean, a Hall of Fame caliber receiver. Rome Odunze is a very, very good rookie. They are stacked with weapons. So when we have faced teams with multiple weapons like this. It has not gone very well, but we also haven't played the multiple weapons with the quarterback who runs around a lot. This is a very interesting matchup. They did really well against Murray, like really, they had him confused. They did really well against him. I want to see what happens here because Murray doesn't have the weapons that the Bears do. It's a really, really interesting matchup.
Well, and that's where Baker Mayfield hurt them, is he did the same stuff, and they got hurt there. And he had some weapons to throw to as well.
They got hurt because they didn't tackle him. I mean, that
right.
really
Well, but they didn't.
Problem. Sacks got away from them in that game,
but they didn't get him. That's the point. Like
right.
So you can't. That's what happened. And so you're right. You have to get him down. And that's what I was on a Chicago radio TV station today, and like that's the big key. Can you keep him contained in the pocket? And by the way, I did just a little plug here. I talked to Courtney Cronin, our ESPN Bears reporter. Going to play that, I believe, on Thursday. So just good information about the matchup there. Just a little plug for the podcast. So I think that's out Thursday morning, I believe. Anyway, but I think the big key is keeping them contained in the pocket. I feel like their rush has been more disciplined, more gap friendly, or more gap disciplined. So that's a big deal. I think Fowler has been playing, to me, really well. If you can get Dorrance Armstrong back, that's a big deal. So I think what you're starting to see, Bram, too, with some of those rushes, I'm curious to see how it plays out. I think a little bit more of the creativity along that defensive front in some rush situations. You're seeing guys, I saw Fowler line up inside with Payne on the outside doing a little stunt. You can see Obata going inside now. And you see, Armstrong, if he gets healthy, would you do that with him? So there are different things they can do up front now to maybe generate some pressure and get a little bit more speed on that defensive front when doing so, which would help against Caleb Williams.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we go, Jayden Davis, what do you think?
Yes, I wanted to ask you about him. So I will say this, certainly not surprised, because what this really signals is Jordan McGee is ready to come out of that 21-day window. His window ends tomorrow to come off IR, and they want to get him activated. So that, to me, is what this signals. And then once Obata came back and immediately started playing and moved ahead of him, well, then Davis is the odd man out. So not a surprise, another disappointment and another failed first-round pick. And someone on here said that he should have kept him at linebacker. Well, maybe, but you have Wagner and Luvu, and they're better. So he would have been a backup linebacker, and maybe in the end you still cut him anyways because they like, what Michael Walker does in the goal line stuff, and they like Jordan McGee. But it's not a big surprise, just another disappointment. I do give Davis credit for how he embraced the switch to end. Bram, he never really showed as a pass rusher that I thought he could do it. And you can have the size and speed, but you also need some instincts, and I just don't think he had that down there.
Yeah, I want to, he embraced it. He tried it. To do that at that position at his size, I want to be really fair to him here. Like Dante Fowler, Cleveland Farrell, F.A. Obata, who are rush ends, like they're 30 to 40 pounds heavier than he is.
Yeah.
For Jayden Davis to be really good at this at his size in the 230 to 240 range, he was going to have unbelievable developed moves and speed that tackles could not deal with. And it wasn't a natural position to him. They tried to get him up to speed to do it. And they gave it an effort. He gave it an effort. I'm with you. I don't think he was going to be a full-time linebacker for them. So they decided, let's try this. And he wasn't having an impact at that position. And I'm not overly surprised at that.
No,
because to be at that position, he was going to have to really develop some moves, and that was going to take time. So I will say one other thing about it, like in the release, I agree. It means that I assume that McGee's going to be up for the first time. I also think the possibility of that they are considering, acquiring somebody, and that they've opened up
here
a
we
spot
go. Here comes Bram.
Yeah,
here we go.
I don't know why people. I don't know why you're so dismissive of this, John. Like
these
opportunities don't come along that often.
I'm not.
Everything I bring this up, people are like, we're trying to think about the future. Future's now, guys. We're 5-2. Like the future is now. These opportunities don't come along that often. Sorry, we're having an unprecedented year. Why don't we try to win more? Like I'm all for. Let's go. I don't want to sacrifice the future. I don't want to give up a first round pick for anybody. But You're telling me we can't get a rental out there for a 7th round pick that might make us better on that side of the ball, who's a true rush end and a dangerous player, somebody who might be playing for Cleveland right now? Like, I don't have a problem with that. I don't know why anybody does.
No, I'm kidding you because like you are very pumped up. And I'm all for adding a piece, all for it. I do think this signals more McGee because there's certainly nothing has been imminent. But I do think it's more about McGee because you can make moves later if you do that. And if anything I've always heard is more bargain shopping, and it's got to be something that fits within the parameters of what they want to do here and now, right? So it's like, yeah,
we're not giving up whatever pick it's going to take to get Cooper Kupp and pay $30 million. Like, I don't think that's happening, but like help on the defensive side of the ball, for an asset to make them better now. Okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No. Yeah. And my point has always been, I'm fine with it as long as it fits within the parameters of it. And it's someone who can help, obviously that has to be the first thing. I think they did very well in the offseason because they knew so many of these guys. So if they're guys that they know that they can bring in who fit within what they want to do, and if the cost is low, hey, by all means, because you need depth is going to win. Depth is going to carry this team. You're not going to add the impact guy, but depth will make a difference. So if you can add some depth, you have to do that. So, but yes.
And everybody's writing DB here too. I agree. I think this team needs to add 2 corners to this team, whether it's in the draft or free agency or whatever. If you can get one now that you like, that you're going to re-sign, they have a ton of cap room. That's the type of move I'm open to now too. What I'm saying about these edge rusher guys that might be available, that might be a rental, I'm talking about a very low pick that it's a right to help the team out. But if you are going to make the move, yeah, I would go for a corner if they're available and for the right price, which is probably a mid-round pick, because you got to do it either way. This is happening either way in the offseason.
And it's got right. And that's why I say, like, if you get a guy like that who fits into the structure of what you want to do now, it can't just be a guy that you lose after the year if you give up a certain pick. But if you give up a certain pick and like the guy's under contract or you sign him, okay, yes, and he fits in that, like, okay. And if it's a guy that you say, like, this is a guy that they really have liked for a while, whatever it is. So, but yes, I just enjoy when you get fired up about it. That's it. So
I don't know. I like winning, John. I don't know. I'm trying to get used to it. I'm stuck on this year, not next year. For the first time in a while, I'm stuck on this year. Let's go. Let's go.
There you go. But anyways, the whole thing with Jamin Davis, a failed experiment. And it's funny because like you look at the reason why this team is in this position, this franchise in this position, because they had 2 first-round picks in 2019, and they're both gone. Dwayne Haskins and Montez Sweat. And Montez, obviously, of all these first-round picks, is the one guy who could play that they would probably like to welcome to have back. Then it's Jamin and Jahan traded for a pick, and who am I missing here? I'm missing somebody. Who is the 5th one?
What?
Oh, Chase Young.
Yeah.
So you miss on those guys, you end up in this position. But the reason why people are optimistic now is because they landed in this spot and they fell. They had the number.
I hear you. Like, they didn't miss on Montez Sweat. They traded him.
Right.
They didn't Chase Young is a tough one. He had serious injuries. That's not the same as some of these other ones. Jamin didn't work out. I agree with that. Jamin didn't work out. That's happened. But they're all different. And Montez Sweat wasn't a miss.
No, for sure not.
They traded him because they decided last year at the time they weren't going to pay him. Go ask the Bears if they're happy with him right now.
Yep. No, for sure. And like I said, he's the guy that they could use. And so there you go. But yes, it's still, I will still say missing on multiple of those picks is why they end up in this spot, because that's what made and you're right. Like Chase Young, the injury made a big difference, but then so too, the injury made a big difference.
Not all these things fall in the same bucket. I know everybody's writing about falls in the same bucket, but they don't. Montez Sweat is not a miss. Chase Young had a very, very, very serious knee injury, and then we found out he had a congenital neck injury. That's not a miss. That's unfortunate.
And there were things that he did that.
Yes.
Right. And for him, it all starts with the injuries. And then there were some things that he could have done better in the offseason than what he worked on, et cetera. But the injuries were, that was a ruptured the tendon was ruptured. Like that
was a year and a half injury he came back from. And then they found out when he came back from it that he had a type of injury that was scary to play with.
Yeah.
So, so for him, I think that's an unfortunate, career issue for him. But, and Montez isn't a miss, but, I'll hear you out. Like Jamin, that didn't work out. It didn't work out. They tried him at various different positions. It didn't work out. And, that's a miss, right?
That one. And I think Jahan too, you'd have to put in there too.
Yes. Jahan. Yeah.
Yes. So I think but you're right. Agreed. They're different buckets. The bottom line is that they didn't have them long-term. None of them will be here for a second contract. And that's partly, for whatever reason, that's why they ended up with Jayden Daniels, to be honest. So Be happy that you suffered through those years to get to this point. There you go. How's that? Anyway, Bram, let's end it right there. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. Again, I'll be back on Thursday with another episode. We'll update on Jayden Daniels, and I'll have an interview with Courtney Cronin from ESPN talking about the Chicago Bears, Caleb Williams, the matchup, what's going on with the Chicago Bears, who are now 4-2. Looking forward to this matchup. Bram, thanks for joining me, and thank everybody for tuning in, and I will talk to you next time.